Good evening and welcome. My name is Ben Doughty, and I'm especially delighted to be joined this evening by former WBC Heavyweight Champion of the World, Oliver the Atomic Bull McCall. Thank you, sir.
How you doing?
I'm good. And also, manager, promoter, long-time boxing stalwart, Jimmy Adams. Thank you for facilitating this, Jimmy.
Ben, thanks for having us on.
So, you know what? I would normally, an illustrious career like Oliver's, I would normally go back to the start and ask how it began. But let's talk about the most recent thing, because it was something Oliver was in the news for. You boxed less than a couple of weeks ago in Nashville, Tennessee, and scored a second-round stoppage over one. I believe his name was Stacey Fraser. What was... People obviously are going to ask you at 59 why you still want to do that, Oliver. Talk to me.
Well, one thing was I was able to, I'm doing fine and everything. I felt that I could do it and be all right and be successful in doing it.
We're on a podcast.
And I'm gonna do it a little more. You know what I'm saying? This is for the old school fighters, the fighters that put in the work and enjoyed the journey. And at the end of the fight career, they can have one or two more fights. It's definitely available. And it's feasible too. I think it could be constructive to the boxing world.
I mean, I must admit, I take a dim view of the crossover kind of sideshows that have kind of done such big numbers in boxing recently. And as a kind of boxing, I don't know about purist, but as a boxing sort of devotee, I try to ignore people like Jake Paul. I hardly ever say his name, and I've just said it once there. But is there an element of motivation that you'd like to gate crash this sort of this party that's seen people, making millions and millions of dollars on Netflix? Is that in your mind?
Yeah, well, yes, of course, but
Yeah.
the way they're going about doing it, I think they're going about it in a crazy way. But that's the way the market is and what's going on. So I'm on board more or less, depending on what's going on, if it's for real. So yeah.
Okay. Having addressed that, let's go back to the start. What I know that you made your professional debut in 1985, and I'm guessing you didn't have a hugely extensive amateur career.
No, I only had like 34 fights, 33 fights.
Okay, so and how did it start for you? What was the thing which led you towards the gym and to become a boxer?
Well, basically, my wife, she was my girlfriend then. She was pregnant. I was in Job Corps, and she was pregnant. I was 17 years old, so I had to get a job. So I basically was going to learn how to fight first and box some amateur fights and then turn pro. But that ain't the way it actually went. But that's the way the plans of it was to go out and box a couple of. But a year turned into a year and a half because I was going to train maybe about a year and then turn pro about a year later. So it ended up being a year and a half, and I turned pro. And somebody paid me money to box and to continue to box.
So it was more economic motivation than it was an inspiration that you had from having a boxing hero or something like that.
Well, back at the time, yeah. Back at that Pacific time, yeah, I liked the boxing, man. I was a boxing fan and everything, but yeah, I was more or less drawn because the financial, what it could bring me financially.
And you mentioned the Job Corps. My reference point for that is George Foreman. He credits the Job Corps with changing his life and meeting a guy called Doc Broadus. Is it the same? Was it the same scheme?
Somewhat like that because when I went to Job Corps, I went to Paducah, Kentucky, and I stayed there, and I got kicked out for fighting because they tried to make me fight, and I had to fight the fight. I ended up getting kicked out for fighting, and I ended up getting kicked out, and that's what made me get into the Golden Gloves. Yeah.
Okay. Did you come up against any later famous names in the amateurs in the Golden Gloves?
No, not famous names. No.
No. Okay. And Jimmy, I know you've been involved in boxing for a very long time, and I believe your relationship professionally with Oliver goes back some decades. Is that true?
That's correct, yes.
Well, when did you guys first start working together? Because Lee Bates, who facilitated this interview, he represented you as Oliver's original manager. Is that correct?
Who is that?
Lee Bates was the guy who connected you and I together, and he said
Oh.
that you were the original manager for Oliver, or you worked with him back in the early days.
Yeah, back with Damiami, Bruce Seldom, and I was his manager back in the Lewis fight. You know, me and I have been together for several years.
Yeah.
Quite a few years, actually.
Yeah, 30-some years.
Yeah.
And you lost a couple of early pro fights, but your first loss of consequence, as it were, came against Mike Hunter, right? The bounty hunter.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bad fight. I don't think I should have took that fight at that point in my career and what was going on. But, it was, boxing is a shrewd sport, and you got to know some about it other than just boxing, or it eat you up and really just get you. But, yeah, so it's just a bad mood at a good time.
Okay. And then going forward, after you lost also to Tony Tucker in an NABF title fight, right?
Yeah.
A split decision. Did you feel that there was a fair decision?
No, I thought I won the Tony Tucker fight.
Yeah.
I did.
And everything, and that kind of threw me. I mean, I was pretty upset on that. But then I still had to, I had to get over it. I mean, for real. And, so it's just something I had to get over as a fighter. But I got over it, and it was getting over them humps there with the Buster Douglas fight and the Tony Tucker fight.
Yeah.
To get over that hump, that was it right there for my career.
And then when you got the shot at Lennox Lewis in London in 1994, I believe Emmanuel Stewart spent a long time instilling in you just how your life could change if you knocked him out, and really inspired you to go out there and shock the world. And is that true? Was he a big pivotal factor in getting you in the kind of headspace where you were ready to shock the world in that manner?
Well, yes, I would say so, because May was someone that I admired back in those days, and I had highly respect for as a fighter, as a trainer, definitely as a trainer and everything. So, yes, I went through a lot of good things with Manny Stewart that prepped me for my career, going all out through my career, though. Yeah, definitely that.
Of the trainers you work with, who was training you from when you initially turned pro up until when you became the WBC Heavyweight Champion? What trainers did you work with prior to that, other than Manny Stewart?
Well, Willie Rush trained me. I trained with this guy named Willie Rush for a while. He was a trainer out of Philadelphia. Joe Frazier had trained me before Manny Stewart trained me.
Okay.
When I was trained with Mike Tyson. So I trained with Joe Lewis. Not Joe Lewis, but Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
Joe Frazier trained me. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Mike Tyson there. Obviously, in any Oliver McCall interview, you must get asked about you being a long-serving sparring partner of Mike Tyson's.
Yes, and see, me sparring with Mike Tyson back then, and that's when I was affiliated with Joe Frazier was training me. And I got a lot of experience from Tyson and Joe Frazier. And being around a lot of heavyweight champions, because Tim Witherspoon was around back then. And I really got a lot of stuff from those guys, Pinkerton Thomas. And it was nice. So, yeah.
I just think that's a better. I've changed the frame, by the way, because it allows more room to get both you gentlemen in.
Yeah.
So, I think with sparring with Mike Tyson, people said fighters have different approaches in camp with their sparring partners. A guy like Muhammad Ali, for instance, was said to have gone easy on some of his sparring partners and worked on weaknesses and things like that. Whereas they said Mike was always trying to knock you out every day in the gym, and that no quarter was asked or given. Was that the way it was in sparring with Mike? It was just ultra serious, and he trying to decapitate a guy in sparring.
Well, basically he was, and overall, in the essence of, you got to really hold your own and be ready to box. So Tyson was that type of fighter. As a fighter coming up, you got to hold your own, or he's going to expose you. You're going to end up getting knocked out and sent home. But he was a cool dude though. He was a cool dude to be around. I learned an awful lot from Mike Tyson. And this is before I became champion. And it's my longevity though. I kind of knew my longevity was gonna be long messing around there with Tyson though. Once I got past that first year of Mike Tyson, I kind of knew my career myself was gonna be a long career.
Yes, because if you have a conversation with boxing fans about the greatest, most durable chins in the history of boxing, the name Oliver McCall always comes up. In heavyweight division or whatever else, it always comes up. So, what do you think it is that makes someone like yourself absorb a shot so well, whereas other guys are more vulnerable to a big puncher sometimes? Just genetic?
I don't know. I always was. I don't know. I could always take a good punch. I mean, even with the gloves off, and I was always was competitive. And when somebody come at me, I got to come at them. So I could be like, if you take it, I could take it too. So I was always very competitive. But I don't know. That's a gift, definitely a gift that I got to be able to take a punch and still keep my equilibrium straight and be able to punch back accurate. That is good. That's a blessing.
You were never knocked off your feet in a pro career at all?
No, sir.
Nor in sparring, Jimmy? Never?
No, he's never been knocked down.
So Oliver McCall has never hit the deck in 5 decades of boxing against the elite who's who of heavyweights.
Right, exactly. No one ever done it.
It's pretty unusual, right?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of shocking, but that's what I do. I love doing it, and I'm excited about it. But and I have fun with it though. But I just still say, well, hopefully I end my career never being knocked down. That's of course that thing I want to accomplish, of course.
Because something, champ. People say Jake LaMotta was never knocked down, but it's not true. Jake LaMotta was knocked down one time against a guy called Danny Nardico, a light heavyweight. So when if you ever hear that, you can say no. Oliver McCall was never knocked down, but Jake LaMotta, he did taste the canvas one time.
Yeah, I never been knocked down, but it's okay. And I've had a long journey in boxing, 40 years now. So I'm very excited, and I'm enthused, and I'm just glad to be part of it. Going into history, and that's a blessing in itself. Yes.
So Jimmy, I know you worked with Don King for many a year when you were cutting your teeth in the boxing industry, right?
Yes, since '82.
So once again, if you ask most boxing fans about Don King, there's this perception that he's this pitiless, non-empathetic sociopath who's done so much to demoralize and rob fighters of money, by hook or by crook, and that he's not a good guy. And then the other flip side, some fans say Don King put on some of the greatest boxing cards in history. To be honest, I take it with a pinch of salt. I'm more interested to hear from people who actually know the man who worked with him. So for that reason, I'd be interested in your kind of perception of Don and his legacy in boxing.
Well, I think Don's been probably one of the greatest promoters of all time. He, to me, I mean, I hear what people say, but like I say, if it wasn't for Don King, I mean, Oliver would probably never got a shot for the title. He went for, because all the other promoters were scared of Oliver and didn't want the fighters to fight Oliver because, Oliver had a record of taking the O's from undefeated fighters, from Bruce Seldon to Henry Akawanda. List goes, and so he was known as the destroying undefeated fighters. And if it wasn't for the Don being the promoter at the time and moving him in position for number one, I mean, every time Oliver fought for a title, he's the number one contender. I mean, ain't nobody ever just stepped up and said, "Hey, I want to fight Oliver McCall." That's never happened.
Voluntary, yeah.
Never happened. He had to be forced to fight Oliver McCall through the governing bodies, And so, Don, I know him personally as a friend. I mean, my kids call him Grandpa.
Yeah.
But I've seen things that I've never seen Don mistreat a fighter. I've seen Don be business and shrewd as a fighter can be. A lot of times I've seen fighters right here when they talk about Don steal money, I'll always shake my head on some of that stuff because and a lot of fighters know this is a fact. You know, a lot of them don't want to admit it, I guess, but they are training something. They want to buy a house, they want to buy a car, whatever. Don will always front the money to keep them happy, and he go buy them. But Don always would say too, I'm gonna take back the I'm on out of the purse. I'm gonna take my money back, or out of training expenses. You know, Don always gave for us to be able to do what we need to do in camp. I mean,
Yeah.
I seen it do with fighters that I didn't even have nothing to do with. You know, back in the day. But when it come time to Don wanting his money back because he's not an ATM,
Yeah.
that's when you hear some of the stuff that you hear. That's what I've seen firsthand with being around Don. But Don's a tight man. He'll give you as much love as you'll give him.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to say about the man. And I don't think Oliver does neither. You know,
You got no grudges against Don, Oliver?
No, not none whatsoever. Boxing is a shrewd sport, and there are particular, things that they, everybody got a certain way point they can go to and don't go past it, and so that's what they're trying to implement and get it done. So hopefully they'll get it done. But no, I stay in my lane and try to be the best fighter I can be, and hopefully everybody else be in their lane and be the best trainer, promoter, whatever they could be, and just do the right thing. Peace.
So going back to 1994 when you won the title in such sensational fashion, some people think that the stoppage was a little premature. I mean, it was arguable. Lennox got up, but he was walking funny and fell into the referee pretty much. I think the stoppage was okay, but I remember I just had another little look at it, and there was Larry Merchant saying that he thought it was an extraordinarily quick stoppage. What was your feelings on it at the time and now?
Well, I didn't think it was a quick stoppage. I only thought it was a quick stoppage because, by them saying he could have went, I knew that he was so shook up where I could have just, easily knock him down. I mean, because I wasn't breathing hard. It was early in the second round. So I think I would have beat him. Either way, I would have got him.
After the fight, Lewis's mama was very, very gracious. I mean, after the fight, she even told us that she was glad they stopped the fight because Oliver could have hurt her son. Yeah. And at the end, when the referee walked forward, Lewis fell into him. He did. And I think the best thing to do for safety for Lewis, I think that stopping the fight was the best thing. Oliver would have knocked him out, and I think Oliver would have got him. If he didn't stop it, he would have got him, and Lewis wouldn't have got up on his own. That's what I think.
The fans are agreeing. John Doyle says McCall was a very good finisher, and Lewis was hurt bad. Incredible. Yeah. Inevitable KO for me. So, do you know Frank Maloney was going mad about it? Obviously, like a manager does, right? Like a manager and promoter does. Frank Maloney was complaining big time. Yeah. Saying to Jose Sulaiman, "You're a thief." As an aside, did you guys follow the Frank Maloney story as it went into the 21st century? Do you know what happened?
What happened to him?
He became a woman. He transitioned, and he is now Kelly Maloney. She. Did you not know that, you fellas?
I did not know that.
No.
Boy.
No, that's new news to us. We didn't know that.
Oh, he became a she. Oh, you know what? Well, I did not know that.
Yeah, and it was obviously it was kind of shocking, but to be honest, in this landscape, people were pretty tolerant about it. She came back as a woman, and announced a press conference that she was going to become the most successful female promoter. It didn't really happen that way. There hasn't really been a resurgence, but there is a documentary out called Kelly, and that's one of those things that's only in boxing, as you might say. But
boxing, yeah,
that's a shock. I never heard that, but we didn't. I mean, Frank got really mad at us when Oliver knocked Lewis out. But he was. We never was on good terms with him like that. But I know he had a fit when Lewis lost the fight. Yeah.
We got one guy says here. Raymond Hales has asked Oliver, why didn't you stay with Manny Stewart after the win over Lennox?
Well, I really don't know. All I know is some things went wrong, and there's a lot of things changed that I wasn't aware of. And that was the biggest thing about that. I think a lot of that went down too. So hindsight, that's just what it is.
Yeah. So you had one defense against the great Larry Holmes, an older version of the great Larry Holmes. And then, let's talk about that before we talk about Frank Bruno. I mean, Larry was a great fighter who you might say he was past noon when you fought him, but he was still a very good fighter. So I guess you must be proud of that win on your resume.
Yeah, Big Larry. I like the Big Larry. He held the belt for 7.5 years and fought all them title defenses. It was time for him to step down and do something. But he gave us some great fights, and not just with me, with Tyson and so forth and so on. I mean, Larry Holmes is a great legendary fighter. I was just honored to be in the same ring with him and, just to share that belt with him also.
And then you came to London in 1995 and lost the title to Frank Bruno. Do you know something, Oliver? It's weird because obviously you'd expect anyone from Britain to have been cheering for Frank Bruno, but I wasn't, and I never had been a Frank Bruno fan. So I was the only person in the pub in this little rural town that I was living in at the time who was cheering for you. But you never really seemed to get started and throwing punches with bad intentions till the 12th round when he was desperately hanging on. What was the story that night that made you so relatively conservative for 11 rounds before you got loose?
You know what, though? That's something about boxing where it happens, but it just happened to happen in that specific fight. I was kind of real lethargic with the way I was throwing my punches with Bruno than with any other big guy. I guess because the way he just built, he's awkward. But it made me kind of be off-centered. I was able to reset and throw different types of punches. And that's something that I had to learn how to do over the years. But, I'm thankful that I experienced it with him and him becoming champion. I think that it's good for him to become champion, just like it was good for me to become champion. When I fought for the first time, I think that was the 4th time he fought for the title when he became champ. So it's all good. My hat's off to him, and I wish he's doing well.
John Doyle has just asked, how did you rate him compared to Francesco Damiani, for instance? Do you feel that Bruno or Damiani was a better fighter?
No, I think Bruno was a better fighter than the Damiani fight. Of course, because of the bigness of the fight at the time. Of course, with the Bruno fight. But the Damiani fight, I think that by having that fight with Ray Mercer and what happened to Ray Mercer, and I was that type of fighter to break you down too, also somewhat like Ray Mercer. So that there was just a matter of time with that one.
You entered the ring crying visible tears against not just Frank Bruno, but also Lennox Lewis. That was something you did at least those 2 occasions and maybe more. What was the, I know you've explained it before about the emotion of going into the ring, but could you comment on that phenomenon today?
So it's the way my ring walk?
Ring walk, yeah.
Yeah, because you were in tears sometimes when you walked to the ring. Against Bruno, you were.
I get very emotional at times. Sometimes I have to make myself get emotional to go off into a big event to fight because, you actually train for the fight, but now you at the event, you got to kind of split yourself into acting the part to actually play the event as far as defending your title. With that fight with Bruno, though, I think that I was ready for that fight. I would have done a couple of things different, of course, but that I really enjoyed that fight and prepping for that fight. I lost the fight, but I think it would have been a hell of a better fight, though. I mean, for real. Yeah.
Well, did you really enjoy the occasion? Because it was a massive deal in Britain. Did you enjoy the whole pomp and ceremony of going to the UK to defend your heavyweight championship?
Yes, I really did both times. Yes, I definitely enjoyed every time I went to London. I like it over there.
My biggest take on the fight with Bruno is the fact that always get yourself geared up. He always breaks sweat and all back in the locker room stuff, and he always gets in his zone. And unannounced to us at the time when we walked out the dressing room, they took Oliver up to the top walk down this ramp by himself, and he got up on top of that ramp, and he had time to cool off.
Yeah.
And I think when he got down to the ring, I mean, all the warmness he had was gone because they didn't have him up there, and they made us go a different way. And so he didn't get back with his team until he got to the ring.
It wasn't good at all.
And so
those ring walks are crazy, by the way, Jimmy. I've never seen
absolutely.
boxing has got more and more pomp and ceremony and more promoted and more there's been more hyperbole ongoing with every passing few years. But
Yeah.
I've still never seen something quite as grandiose and almost science fiction as those Bruno McCall ring walks. It was they
Great.
had these, and it never been done before, and I've never quite seen it since.
And like I say, we wasn't aware when we walked out the dressing room. They just took him and said, "Oh, we got to go up here." And we had to walk the ring without him, and he went up there, and then he had to stand up there, and he got there, and it was colder, and he got to chill up there, and the warm up that he had is broken and sweat and all. When he got to the ring, man, he wasn't sweating. I mean, he done chilled off.
Yeah,
and I think that's one thing that hurt him is he already got pumped up, then let down, and by the time he got it back together, and then Bruno started off with a good right hand right off the bat, first round. And I think Alba had to regroup back to get back in his zone. That's just me.
Yeah. Is that what you feel too, Oliver?
Yeah, I felt that way. Yeah, definitely like that. Yep.
So what about that story shortly after the fight? You went back to America, and there was a story, at least, that was being reported that you got robbed in St. Louis of the $1.4 million check, which you were hiding in your sock, and a little bit of cash because you took an impulsive trip to St. Louis from
Yeah, that happened. That happened. That was a true event.
Yeah.
It ripped me off from my money, man.
But you got the check back, right?
Yeah, eventually. Eventually, we got it back from them. Not from me, but they got it back from the guy who took it from me and all of that. Yep.
Because according to a UPI article, which I had a look at earlier today, I think you went from Las Vegas to, I can't remember, but to somewhere else with Kansas City, Las Vegas to Kansas City with your wife, and you guys had a tiff.
Right.
So you just go on.
Yeah, from Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah.
Between those two places, yeah.
But because it struck me as a bizarre story at the time. Certainly, it was. I wasn't sure if it even happened because at the time, I guess at the time you said, when questioned about it by the media, you said it hadn't happened because I guess you didn't want to talk about it to the media,
right?
Because it's street stuff, right? So you don't talk about it to.
Right. A lot of crazy little stuff that I have had to get rid of and distance myself from, which thank God I finally done, and I'm enjoying the good life now, for real. So that's a good thing.
The only thing that gets in the day is a cold.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, because that was part of your story, right? The kind of whole the sex, drugs, and rock and roll trip, which afflicts people, whether they're boxers, whether they're plumbers, gas fitters, or musicians. You went through a period of your life when you were seduced by those kind of vices, right, Oliver?
Yes, sir. Yep. And they go together, and everything, and dealing with them is something else too. But to get a hold of that is something in itself that goes with life for you to have a certain good value in life anyway. Yeah.
1 second. Do you know what? After losing to Bruno, you rebounded with a pretty decent win over a fighter who went on to future prominence in Oleg Maskev. You took Oleg Maskev out in a round after the Bruno loss, which was a win that aged pretty well when you look at what he went on to do.
Yeah. And Oleg Maskev, I didn't underestimate Oleg Maskev. I knew that he could punch, and I actually had to, make the necessary adjustments early to get him. So I took advantage of that very early, because I knew that the way he punched for me to stand up and try to, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and training for that fight, Oliver really took him serious. I mean, he took him as serious as anybody he'd ever thought because he trained hard for that fight because he did give Ollie all the credit in the world of his punching power.
Yeah,
and that's why he jumped on him right from bell one.
And I guess because you'd lost the title to Bruno, it was a kind of a wake-up call, and you felt motivated by the recent disappointment, maybe.
Right, exactly.
So, with the Lennox Lewis rematch in, I believe it was February 1997, Is it fair to say you shouldn't have been in the ring that night, Oliver?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I said, yeah, it was fair. I shouldn't have been in the ring because the fight's over and I didn't finish the fight.
Yeah.
But I was all right to be in the ring, but under the guidelines and what was going on, I don't think it was right. I don't think it was cool for me to be in the ring under that situation. And
should somebody in your team have identified that and prevented it from getting to fight night? Do you believe? I'll ask that question to both of you.
But see, that's what I don't know. I can't because I don't know their part. All I know is I come up with a short in my part as the fight was going on, and didn't get knocked out. But still, I didn't finish the fight. You know, under the expectation of winning the fight like I'm supposed to.
Yeah, it's the only time you lost inside the distance of any nature. What's your view of that particular situation, Jimmy?
Well, you know, it's hard. You know, it's really hard to pinpoint today because Oliver, you got in a little trouble back here in Tennessee, and I think really what happened. I think the powers to be was more interested in fighting than what we was interested in fighting. Yeah. But he got, but you know, they was really strict on him, really hard on him, and we almost was in a situation we didn't have no choice. I mean, well, we didn't have. Or he'd have went to jail. Went to, you know, but if he went and fight for a title, things would get swept underneath the carpet a little bit, you know, and so we had no control of that whole fight. Really, to tell you the truth, I mean, not even Don. A lot of people don't understand that, but as we said before in another interview, we come out and finally told the truth about it to people. Oliver, we didn't even see each other except at the gym and at the fight. I mean, the court had him locked down in a place totally different from his camp, and so you know, could it be said was it unfair? I think it was unfair to the whole team because Lewis did not get the best of Oliver McCall that night. That's for sure, but Lewis still couldn't knock him out. And that's why, and that's why I was said in an interview earlier a couple of weeks ago, hey, let's do a Lewis and McCall 3 because first time, and Oliver said it out of his own mouth, he's the first time I knocked you out, second time I cried and gave it to you, third time let's do that IH now at 59.
Would you promote that, Jimmy?
In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat, yeah. You know, Lennox, I wonder what his take on that is because he's perfectly visible. You see him around in boxing today. We know where he is, and he seems to be doing well. I wonder if he might be. Did you hear that supposedly Vladimir Klitschko had been contemplating a comeback? Did you get that news?
I've also been told that Lewis is training now, and he's thinking about it. And he is. I think Lewis was interested in doing a Tyson fight if Tyson won. That's just here to the grapevine, not directly from him, but I've heard from a couple of people that's close to him, and I've heard also that he would be. And it could be not true. I don't know. But I heard also Lewis would be interested in McCall Lewis 3 if the money was good. So I've also heard that. So, but you know, that's not coming directly from Lewis. We got the utmost respect for Lewis, but we both think that he was a great champion. We ain't taking anything with him, but we just think there's a question left out there. Could he really beat McCall if McCall didn't stop fighting?
What was in your mind at the moment it was stopped, Oliver? Were you trying to find a way to abdicate and get yourself out of the contest, or were you just refusing to throw any punches and intending to go the distance like that? What was in your head at the time?
At that point, it was kind of drawn out of the proportion to the point to where I would just want to survive the fight now and get back out of the ring. I wanted to get out of the ring in one piece. So it was kind of real hard to say how to go about it because it was so awkward of what I was doing and why I was doing it. Why I didn't know how I was going to come out of it. So that was the suspenseful part of it that I had to go through myself. It was cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah. And how was your immediate life after that fight? That night, the following day, the next few weeks, how were you feeling about the whole thing?
I was okay. I didn't get knocked out. I was okay at that point, but then how it came about, the whole fight was a disappointment. You know, kind of was a flop that I had to really kind of, just stay to myself and don't get carried away too much talking about it. So that was the number one thing. I had to not talk about it that much, and just because people would take it and shape it and form it for the way they want to shape it and form it.
And then another thing, a lot of people don't understand. When that happened, is Oliver wasn't just suspended from the Nevada; the whole world suspended him from fighting.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget after the fight was over with. I'll never forget George Foreman come up to me, and he told me, he said, put his arm around. He said, "Listen, I don't care what anybody else says. What that man does, what that man needs right now, for you to embrace him and fight with him to get by this." And basically, that's what we done. We took and we had to go in front of all kind of tests and stuff the next day, and prove that we both could walk out of it. I mean, it was a lot of garbage to it that we endured and went through just to get through it. So then we regrouped and we come back to Nashville, started back training, and I think we fought like 10, 12 fights to prove he was stable to fight again before we even got a license again. So I mean, therefore, like when people want to say stuff, they don't understand. The whole world suspended him over that. And but he stood up and came back and started back fighting to prove people that there was something wrong besides himself. There was things that made him react, and all of us react the way we had to react.
Yeah. Well, did you relocate to Nashville, Oliver? Because you're from Chicago, right?
Yes, sir.
When did you move? Have you been living in Nashville for several years at this point?
No, this is a while back. I lived here for a while. So I was here for a couple of times, off and on for a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
You're back in.
Where are you based today? Nashville?
I'm right here in Nashville.
Okay.
Right in Nashville.
Well, about 6 weeks ago, I gave him a call. He was in Virginia, and I gave him a call, and just come back and let's because with what I got going on, and Oliver is not only a good fighter, he's a really good trainer also.
Yes.
So and I got a slew of fighters now, and then I got Country Box and Jimmy Out Promotion. So I really didn't call him per se as much to come fight, but to come help train because the experience he's got, and he's a good trainer. And so then he talked about he wanted to fight, and we said, hey, let's do it. And we went through all the tests. We went through every test. The commission approved him for being 59. We done everything we need to do, and we always follow the guidelines. And so he passed every test, and they cleared him to fight.
And I've seen some of your social media posts, Jimmy, where Oliver's holding pads in the gym and stuff. Tell me about Country Box, because I believe it's not just boxing related, but it is a wider brand than that.
Yeah, well, Country Box, I turned it into an event. It's country music and boxing. And it starts off, the way it starts off is it starts off with a band or a person was saying 2 or 3 songs. Then it goes to boxing for two different fights. Then he goes back to the stage and does a little country music. And demographically, 0 to 100. It's really a fun, cool event. And it's a 3-hour show. I know the last fight, our numbers were like 127,000 people watched it for 2 hours, and I think 2 hours and 30 minutes. They got on and stayed, in which my numbers are good, and we're just growing it, and it's fun, like I said. But it's a platform that gives fighters an opportunity that where a big promoter ain't gonna give it to them unless they put them in the ring to get as an opponent or something. We give everybody an opportunity to come here and build a career, fight. We've had a lot of upsets here. A lot of people come here, and Christy Martin, Nicole Miner's daughter, she's my matchmaker along with my wife.
That's cool.
And then we got Mark Abrams. He's one of my commentators. Albert Hainsworth, that used to play football. Titans all. He's a commentator. We got Mike Rogers. I mean, we got a good crew of people. We got a good crew of solid people that understand boxing and been there. And like I say, from Christian Martin, her and all have been friends forever. And I mean, it's just it's a family environment. And I have a lot of people come here that don't never listen to country music, but you got to understand, country music is the soul of America.
Yeah.
And so no matter what, when people listen to country music, they're gonna like it when they listen to it. I mean, it's just a lot of fun. And we have a pony that's a mascot, a little miniature pony. We bring in the mascot,
Yeah.
and we just have a good time. And I've had people come in. I've had one lady come in that was really big in the Kentucky Derby and all. And when she come to the door, her son-in-law, and she looked at me. She said, "I want you to know, I hate violence. I hate boxing." And I'm looking at it, thinking to myself, how you hate violence when a horse kicks you upside the head and this and that, But anyway, it was cool. So after the fight, the girl that works for me come to me and said, "Hey, the lady wants to see you up front." And I went up there front, and she looked at me. She said, "I will be back." She said, "It's the most fun." She said, "When I go to UN, I've never seen so many different type people that come together as an event and all just mix and be with each other and have fun." And that's what we do, man. I mean, when Oliver came, when Oliver done his fight there, but also, that was a bus of people from a old folks' home that came out to support him.
Yeah.
And that night, man, I have had so many calls from almost every one of them thanking Oliver being such a gentleman to them and throwing T-shirts and stuff like that. And they come in and support him. And actually, like a woman told me yesterday, actually, the main woman called me yesterday and said he had gave these women, they talk about it all the time, that he took that little time with them to thank them for coming and supporting him. And that's the stuff we like to do.
Yeah.
We like people feel
Definitely.
part of what we do. And also as a platform, we have 700 people a day that come to Nashville wanting to come in and play country music. And also it's a platform where I give people to be seen and stuff, I'm talking, I started a label called Country Box Records. The president of it is Leon Everett. And what I've done is I'm getting ready to be distributed by Virgin Records. And also I'm going to start my own platform for that too and give people opportunity to do a career. So I'm really proud of Country Box. It's family run. My wife, my kids all involved with it. It's just a good, fun event place to be.
Well, you're selling it to me, Jimmy, right now. And you know what? I agree with you that people will vibe country music if they're exposed to it, because I never thought I would like it. But then I lived in New York about 20 years ago, and there was a bar on the Upper West Side called Yogi's, which is a real country bar. And they would just play wall-to-wall country music, and the next thing you know, you find yourself start liking it, And
you start patting that foot, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you just.
But the ultimate test, I guess, in terms of the ethnic kind of crossover, Oliver, have you acquired a taste for country music?
Oh yeah. I definitely like country music. I always liked the country music back when I was a kid, and I like it when they mix it up now with different other types of music.
Yeah.
I've been liking that for a while, so it's just part of I like it when they mix it on up. And
don't let Oliver fool you now, but Oliver can sing too now.
I can sing a little country.
He sang, and we went to Rome. I never forget it. And he had the whole area just clapping to him and listening to him, and it was so funny because Don looked at him and said, "You'd be really good if you learned the words," because I started making up words and stuff, to Marvin Gaye songs.
Yeah, but I like doing that. Yeah,
that's cool. That's something I didn't know. Do you know what? I have got a guitar just across the way from me by the mantelpiece. I do a little bit playing, but I ain't going to do it now. That would be pretty cool if we'd have just tried to do something ad hoc. But maybe next time. Maybe next time we'll try that. But do you see your future as a coach beyond this last little kind of reprise of your actual fighting career, Oliver?
Yeah. I think I'll be coaching and managing fighters soon. I will be doing one, if not both. Yeah. And I like going to fights, so I'm gonna be attending some fights. So while I'll be doing some business while I'm attending the fights and hopefully making some champions. But my thing is to make a couple of champions from start to finish before I'm just
scratch.
Over. Yeah.
Well, are you a big fight fan today? Do you follow everything that's happening in the boxing world today?
Yes, I'm a very big fight fan. I realize I love it more than I can really talk about it. But, I'm definitely a big fight fan, so I'm looking forward to really getting into it more on the business aspect, but I still love watching the boxing, just watching the way it's working,
So what about Fury-Usyk rematch? How do you see it?
Well, I'm going with Usyk. I'm going with Usyk.
Do the double.
I think
What about you?
I think it's gonna be a close fight and everything, but I think that in the end, Usyk gonna end up doing something to offset whatever Fury do.
Jimmy?
I think Fury's going to take it.
He
Okay,
go
we got this opinion here between manager and fighter. That's cool. You
He
think
go-
Fury's going to get it right this time?
with Usyk.
Yeah, I just think Tyson is because he's a little bit bigger, stronger, and I think that Tyson don't like losing, and I think he got something to prove to himself, not just to the world, but to himself on this one.
Yeah, I hear you. Oliver, who is your favourite fighter in the world today? Anyway,
My favorite fighter in the world
today.
today. Will probably I'm an Errol Spence fan.
Yeah, although Errol Spence looked like damaged goods against Crawford, right? That's
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but that Errol Spence is my dude though. I always been an Errol Spence fan though. You know, somebody got to lose, but you know, and that's one guy that I didn't want to see Errol Spence lose the way he lost. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about your favourite fighter in history of all times?
Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah. And do you believe that Sugar Ray truly was the greatest fighter who ever had the gloves on?
Yes, I really do. I think that pound for pound, his natural ability, him going the way he came up and really took the sport of boxing, he was number one. He number one, had to be number one. Yeah.
You know,
Overall.
when we had, you remember Michael the Silk Day, the middleweight?
Yeah.
Okay, he's my friend. He used to be my co-presenter on this channel. That's why it's called Sugar, Silk, and Stretch. So we had this debate one time. I said that Robinson was the greatest pound for pound fighter in boxing history, and he said no. He said that Ali was. He believed, and we went back and forth on it like a court battle. He came up with his points for why Ali was the greatest fighter of all time, and I argued for Ray Robinson. You know, so it was an interesting debate. But I think most establishment figures tend to favour Robinson. I don't know if you do, Jimmy.
Yes. Yeah, I love Robinson's my favorite too. Overall, I think he
Robinson is my
Yeah.
favorite. Yes, Robinson.
Yeah. And
Hey, but I got a question for you, Obian.
go on.
What's your thoughts on Garcia and Haney?
Ryan Garcia and Haney. Okay, that's interesting because I do think you got a kid who doesn't try to make the weight. Obviously, didn't even try to make the weight. Came in big, 3.5 pounds overweight, and every time he hits him with a left hook, the guy crumbles like the Twin Towers. So
Yeah.
I do believe that maybe there was some chemical enhancement going on. It can't give you the IQ and the technique to throw a good left hook, but the way he it was a funny fight, you know, Jimmy, because I actually think Haney won more rounds than Ryan did, but Ryan won his rounds so massive, that's why he won the fight, because he was getting 2-point margins. I thought when he wasn't on the canvas, I thought Haney was doing quite but he was on the canvas too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So it's like Conor Benn over here. Fighters, when did a fighter ever hold his hands up and said, yes, I took performance enhancing drugs? Never. So Ryan says he's innocent. Conor Benn says he was innocent and he's been cleared finally after a 2-year back and forth over here. But did you see that Ryan wants to box an exhibition in Japan on
I've seen
Christmas?
it.
But De La Hoya said, no, you ain't doing it because you need our permission and we ain't giving it. Do you see that?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Well, he says he's going to fight in April. He lifted Ryan Garcia.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think about the Haney Garcia affair, the fight itself, and also the fallout afterwards?
Well, I really hope that I like Andy Garcia for real. I love Andy Garcia. The Haney thing, I want them to fight again. Let them fight one more time.
Yeah.
They need to fight again.
I think Garcia sort of took Haney's spirit from him as far as fighting himself, you know.
That's the problem, Jimmy, because when fighters lose, I don't know if you saw Sonny Edwards last night, got absolutely...
I did see it, no.
Well, Sonny Edwards, who lost to Ben Rodriguez, you might recall, last year, he fought a kid called Galal Yafai last night in a big. I guess it was for the WBC interim title, whatever that means. But it's like a big domestic clash here last night, and he lost to a kid called Galal Yafai, who was Olympic gold medalist in 2020, 21. And Sonny, who's a brilliant boxer, and kind of like a little kind of like a Willie Pep light kind of guy. The guy just walked through him, and I think sometimes when a guy loses the first time, it changes his psyche, and they never recover from it. Especially if it's a beatdown kind of loss. Sometimes a fighter doesn't recover from that, right?
Right.
I think that's what's happened to Haney, because he did. I mean, he's not used to all the bad publicity he's got, and he took a whipping. Regardless of what happened, he took a whipping. He was on the mat way too much. I agree with you about Garcia. I mean, he boxed more, but Garcia Haney spent too much time on the mat. He spent too much that left hook. He was just a sucker for that left hook.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody said, it's crazy these days the way trainers can't teach someone to block a left hook. Do you feel the standard of coaching has gone down since your era, Oliver?
Yeah, I think the coaching have gone down since my era, because now they ain't really listening to what the coach saying, and they doing things like they want to do. The coaches that is on the scenes now is just doing so much amateurish type of training to where that's all they doing. So right now we got a lack of coaching, and then we got a lack of students that listen to some real coaching and being accurate on and knowing that they're doing it for their well-being. And they have to understand that and appreciate that. That's what they need.
Too many people showing off mitt work on social media, Instagram these days?
Yeah, just going through these little crazy motions, not giving them some real advice and real structure,
Well, that's why I think Oliver would be a great trainer, because I know when he walks in the gym, and I got some potential world champs, and when Oliver goes in the gym and he shows them just little bitty things that adds more power to do, and he takes time with them, and they got so much respect for him because they know he's been through it. It ain't like what it was in the day, because my first fighter was Ernie Schaefer's.
Okay.
So I had Ernie Schaefer, I had Tony Tucker, I had Greg Page, Quick Tillis, I had him for a while. And Burt Cooper was my fighter when I took him to fight Holyfield, and of course in Oliver. But it's like Oliver had real trainers, from Emmanuel Stewart to
George Benson. Someone asked me to ask about George Benson.
Man, we love George Benson. George Benton was a class act, man.
Yeah.
George Benton was a teacher.
Yes.
I mean, George didn't raise his voice. He just talked to you, and when he talked, it's like water in a sponge. He just absorbed what he would say to you. I mean, he was just a teacher. But he had Richard Giacchetti. I mean, he had great trainers, man. He had great trainers. And so and so now when you look at trainers today, they don't get it. Trainers today, it just goes over their head because they think the mitts and their little paddle things. And I always go back to what I did to watch with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee always said, boys don't hit back. It's the same thing. Mitts don't hit back. You know what I'm saying? I think that the trainers just don't have it together. And I think Oliver can bring that forefront to boxing and help put it back, because he had the best trainers out there. He had them. He was around all of them.
And a lot of these guys didn't even do mitt work sometimes, did they?
No, they didn't like doing mitt work. And now they, I don't know, they crazy, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's just, but then again, most what you got now, you got amateur trainers that try to go pro. And even in boxing, amateur and pro boxing is different. It's totally different work.
Yeah. Do you know, though, Michael Elijah has got an interesting view on this. He says sometimes a guy's amateur style will work for him, like someone like Usyk, for instance, or Bivol. Arguably, they got similar style to the one they use in the Olympics. And he says that sometimes a guy in the gym will try and get you away from the fighter who made him in the first place, the amateur coach, because they'll try and convince the fighter that his style won't work as a pro, when actually it would if he believed in it. Like Tony Jeffries, who was an Olympic bronze medalist, he said they told him when he was a pro he had to stop bouncing and he had to sit down a bit more and pace himself and slow down. And he said, I wish I had not listened to them and just made myself fit enough to move and bounce for 12 rounds. there's an argument there, at least, you know. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying Tony Jeffries is right, but look at someone like Muhammad Ali, who obviously was a historical exception, and they'll say, well, you can bounce around if you want to as a pro.
Yeah,
You know
you
what I
can
mean?
bounce around and stop you from getting hit and beat up a lot, where you don't have to take as much as punishment. And so to be able to bounce and move and hit and don't get hit, it's very important to any fighter.
Somebody just asked me, did Oliver ever box with Mike Weaver in sparring sessions?
No, I don't think I ever spar with Mike Weaver, but I definitely trained for a fight that he fought in, a couple of fights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, gentlemen, I'm usually grateful for you giving me this time, and I can see. I mean, obviously, the kind of selling point was Oliver McCall, former WBC Heavyweight Champion. But I'm aware, Jimmy, particularly now that you've had a fascinating journey in boxing, and I'd certainly like to have you on again as a solo thing as well, because you've got a big story to tell. It sounds. I'd love to come to Nashville sometime and see one of the country box promotions and see what it's all about.
We'd love to have you anytime you want to
Come
come.
on down.
We will stay in touch. I feel like finishing on some kind of crescendo. Oliver, ultimately, in your opinion, the best fighter you ever fought, that you ever shared a ring with, and why?
Well, I would have to say Larry Holmes. I was glad that I shared this ring with Larry Holmes. I watched him as a kid. I was a great fan of his, of course, and of course I was an Ali fan too. But back in the day, not realizing one day I was going to be, defending my world title with him and everything. I got to know his family, so that was an awesome part of my boxing experience. Me and the Larry Holmes family.
And you know, something else, Oliver, in closing, your diction is absolutely perfect. You're articulate, and clearly you're one of those fighters who got away with it. In terms of, punishing career, you fought who's who of monstrous punchers, and you could be you seem like you could be like an attorney if you wanted to be, with your articulation and eloquence. So that's good for you.
Well, he's even better when he gets all this stuff he knows and stuff.
Yeah. We'll get him when he's actually on all cylinders, firing properly.
But everything is, I'm just feeling like I'm blessed. God is good. A lot of things happen to people that we don't understand, and some for the good, some for the bad. But I've learned to roll with the punches and to deal with what I have left, because what you have left is what you got. Is what you need to work with. All you got. So I'm blessed and I'm thankful.
Well,
Gratitude.
thank you for giving me this opportunity, which is precious to me, and yourself, Jimmy. We'll stay in touch. I've got your number. We'll stay in touch, and this won't be the last piece of business we do, sir. So thank you both very much, and have the rest of your day.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right.